Would you please state your name for me?
My name is Jeanette Smith.
What year was you born, Miss Smith?
I was born January the 1st, 1940.
In what county?
I was born in Jones County, Mississippi. Soso, the name of the city. And my family in Soso were the Knights and the Musgroves. My daddy was Musgrove, and my mother was the um, granddaughter of Newton Knight, and who was um, he was captain of the Free State of Jones. Most people are familiar with Captain Newton Knight. He was a captain who deserted the Confederacy and joined the Union Army because he didn't believe in owning slaves, even though his grandfather had owned slaves, but he didn't. Newton Knight was my great-grandfather. His grandfather purchased my great-grandmother, Rachel, on the blocks out of Mobile. She was, at that time, about 13 years old. She had two mixed children, they call them mulatto, when his grandfather bought her. Their land was on the edge of Jones County and Jasper County. Newton Knight, when he purchased, his grandfather purchased Rachel, his grandfather gave him Rachel. He had a relationship with Rachel, and out of that relationship, they had about 7 children. My grandfather, Henchy Knight, was one of those children, and that was my mother's father. So, because of him integrating, she was mulatto herself. She was mixed. So, he purchased her strictly for personal reasons. I understand that the Mormons had came down and they had did a lot of pioneering and witnessing and recruiting memberships in Jones County. I guess he came up with the concept that he could have as many wives as he could afford, but he was the only one that started crossing the racial lines. So he had, my grandmother had a house right beside his house. So he raised children by his white wife and by my grandmother.
By his concubine.
Yeah, his concubine. But she was a slave.
She was a slave.
She was his property. So it's just amazing when you think about things like that and think about how people became mixed and how they can have hatred when actually they don't know who their own relatives are.
Do you remember Rachel? Can you recall her?
No, she passed early, and before I was even born. They said she died because she had too many children. And I don't even remember my grandmother and my grandfather. They died before I was born. So there are a lot of books that have been written about our family. And just recently, my cousin has written a book about Rachel's children. And it is wonderful to get the other side of the story, where you trace the genealogy and you know exactly, where you come from. The difference about Newt's children by Rachel, they were on the birth certificate that he was the father. And he gave her about 180 acres of land. Her land was up there by the other children's land. He also, when he bore those children by her, the 2 children that she came with and his own white children, he had them to marry each other, try to keep, as you could keep breeding more white into, the black would run out. So that was just cousins marrying cousins, and we were called the white Negro. And, it was just like you lived in like a little secluded town. Nobody bothered Newt's Knight children.
White or black?
White or black. He was one of the most powerful men in the county. That's why he wanted to have his own county. He wanted to declare Jones County to be Free State of Jones. He wanted to succeed from the other parts of the South. He wanted his own county.
What do you think his purpose for that was?
I don't think he believed in slavery.
He wanted interracial relationships?
Yeah. I don't think he believed in slavery. He didn't believe, the way the South was doing. He just thought that the concept of sharecropping, as you're talking about now, that it could be done and people could work for their living and eventually own their own land. And this was after the slaves were freed. So I think he has so many different ideas about things. He just didn't think that there should be anybody, any preference over white marry white and black marry black and that kind of thing. And that's why he wanted to form his own state.
Now, tell us about the sharecropping period. Did you ever meet any former sharecroppers? Did you know any?
Well, unfortunately, the sharecropping that was done within our family, which was a big family that spread it from Jasper, Jones, and even Forest County, where you had these white Negroes. When they brought in their other relatives, they let them sharecrop until they were able to establish their own land, but there was not that kind where they would beat them out of the land and just really, instituting slavery again. I think that we were taught that, we should look after our own. We should make sure that they had homes and they were independent and they would be able to take care of themselves.
So this was a darker family members in your family,
right.
And you always taught to look after them and to make sure.
Because, see, if you came from my mother's side, the Knights, that's why if your skin wasn't the right color, they didn't own you either. If somehow or another, you know how it is when you got mixed race, some of them are going to come out dark. But
so if they came out dark, what happened?
They just, most of them leave or moved away. They didn't take them in and let them sharecrop until much later. But when